I don't know how to speak any other languages, but I still think it's so cool that you can get your book translated into nearly any language you want right now. Now, many of us have heard about how AI can help us actually translate our books, and it's really cool. But today, we're going to talk about something a little bit more nuanced, how AI and humans can work together to actually translate your books much cheaper, 10 times cheaper than doing it traditionally, but also at a really high quality that AI alone couldn't get you. And that's why I brought on a very special guest, Maxwell Zachs, with us. He is such an amazing human being, and I've known him for a long time now. I think we've gone back and forth the internet. He's read my blog, I've seen his work, and it's just great to finally be able to talk with him live on the pod and dive into how to localize your stories into languages like German, French, and more. Now, one thing I want to say is that this is an area of AI in particular that I know very well, because when I worked for Mr. Beast, I did their localization and helped out helping translate and dub those videos into dozens of languages. So getting to talk with him today was a real treat to see how someone's doing this at a very high level in the book world, because I've been able to be fortunate to see how this works in the YouTube world at a very high level. And what's great is that this is now open to everyone, and you all can now participate in being able to do this with your stories. So super excited to see y'all there. And one thing I'll note before we dive in is that Creatorwood very soon is going to be allowing automatic dubbing and subtitling or subbing of films, so that not only can you translate your books into all these incredible languages, but you can localize your films now based on your books into tons of different languages, so that you ultimately can have readers all over the world experience your stories in as many formats as possible. Really cool stuff. I'll catch y'all on the flip side, but let's dive into this conversation. We go super deep, and I promise it'll be a fun one. Max, I am so excited to chat with you. We've been in touch for a long time, and I think we've been meaning to film this for a long time, but now's the moment. And I'm going to bury the lead a little bit, but you've been working on something, and not just working on, you've been growing something really special that can help really globalize author stories and make storytelling really a universal language. That's what I see you doing. And I'd love for you to share, before we get to exactly what it is, what even inspired you to do this, because you basically, I'll share like the high level here. Like, you're helping very quickly, very cheaply, and also with high effectiveness translate stories from indie authors. And also, I'm sure you're working with beyond indie authors too, but starting with indie authors into many languages. So I'd love to hear about like how this started, because getting a book translated is like a dream for a lot of people, but it's not necessarily like the first thing you think about.
So let's go right back to the beginning, which is me as a child, absolutely obsessed with books. I'm sure you're the same. It's the author origin story. When I was a child, I was obsessed with books. And so I thought that meant that I would grow up and I would be a writer. And I dedicated myself to that for many years, just writing. And I still do write. But when I look back at my childhood self, I also realized it wasn't just the writing that I was obsessed with. It was also the publishing. Like, I think I would get like A4 bits of paper and fold them in half. That would be the book cover. And then I would put little pages inside, and then there would always be a barcode on the back and an ISBN number. So I think like I was always just obsessed with the whole process. The last 20 years, I've been writing and publishing my own books, but I've also been working with other authors and collaborating the whole time. I actually remember like the first time I worked for another author, my friend told me that she had paid someone to format her book and she'd been scammed. And I was like, send it to me, sister. I'll format your book for you. And then a week later, one of her friends was like, oh, can you format my book for me? And so over the years, I've worked with so many different authors, just sharing the skills that I've learned. And that's what I was doing prior to Word Count. I was freelancing, publishing my own books with some success, but also freelancing, working for other authors, editing, formatting, all of those delicious things. Then I translated my book into Italian, Spanish, and Catalan using Scribe Shadow.
Catalan is so cool. I love, like, people don't even know that language exists a lot of times in the US. I love that you did that.
I live in Catalonia, so it made sense. And also, I've got Italian family and loads of Spanish friends. And so actually more people were asking me for my book in translation than they were in English.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
that's what you get when you live in Europe.
So cool. Okay, so for folks who don't know what Scribe Shadow is, and even like how AI translation works in general, how would you describe the process?
Okay, so this was back in October 2023. So the Scribe Shadow platform that you see today is way more advanced than what we were using all of those ancient years ago. But essentially, it's a platform where you can select different AI models, for example, ChatGPT, Claude 3.7, DeepL, and then you can use those models to translate long form fiction. So like when you use ChatGPT, there's a word limit of how much you can put in the prompt at a time. And so it's very labor intensive to translate your whole book that way. Scribe Shadow takes your book, breaks it up into parts, feeds it into the AI model, and then brings it back, puts it all back together, translated. And it allows you to do that translation very cheaply, very quickly, and with very good results. And the results are getting better all the time. Back in October 2023, when I translated my book, and it came back from the Scribe Shadow magic machine, I could see that there were some errors. And I knew that if I gave the book to my friends and family with those errors, I was going to get roasted. I was also working at the time for a translation agency. I had access to translators who more often than not owed me a favor. And so I cashed in all my favors and I had my book reviewed by my translator friends in Italian, Spanish, and Catalan. And the results that I got back were fantastic. Like I realized straight away, like my Italian and my Spanish is all right. Good enough I could realize that the translation had been significantly improved. And when I published my book on Amazon in Spanish and Italian and Catalan, I got good reviews and my friends and family were really happy because the combination of the AI
Wow.
and having a human actually read the book and
Yeah.
find all those little mistakes, the results were fantastic. And that's when I realized I might be onto something. And I joined the Scribe Shadow Facebook group. Back then, I think there was less than 30 people in the group. And I started meeting other authors who were translating their books, and they were asking, does anybody know an Italian proofreader? Can anybody help me find someone to read my book in Spanish? And I couldn't stop myself putting my hand up and saying, yes, I can help you there. So between, I think, January and June 2024, we did about 30 books just for my friends, for other authors that I found on Facebook. And the whole time we were improving our method, we were getting faster. We immediately started making guidelines so that when we did the next book, it would be more efficient. And we added German and French to our list of languages, and it just grew organically. Like I never actually did any marketing or any kind of aggressive sales. But I realized that it was enjoyable. We liked the work. I like working with authors. It was fun. So it was a good little side hustle. And then we had a meeting at work at my translation agency that was to address the issues around AI, because globally, the translation industry is suffering negative impacts of AI. People are using AI to translate in their day-to-day business, in their lives, when before they might hire a human to do that.
Sure.
And there are very few translation businesses around the world that aren't feeling that negative impact in some way. And we were having this discussion at work. What are we going to do? We're losing clients. Has anybody got any ideas? And I was like, we've been doing these books and it's going quite well. However, in order to continue doing that, we're going to have to decide whether or not we are pro AI or not. It's going to be very hard for us to sit on the fence if we're also doing this work? And we talked about it, and all of the translators that had worked on books were so excited to do more.
Yeah.
And so again, it was a natural decision. We enjoyed the work kept coming. And so we were like, let's figure out how to do more of this just in case.
Sure.
And so that's when I had the bright idea of writing to Scribe Shadow and asking them if they'd like to collaborate with us. And I have to say that it is your fault that I had that bright idea, because at that time I was listening to your podcast for Read. And you were interviewing authors and you were talking about this idea of like really embracing your story as a business and taking it really seriously and thinking about how you could make more money and be more successful in author services and enjoy your writing more than ever before by focusing on the things that like are profitable for you. So it hit home. And so in July 2024, I wrote to Scribe Shadow and I was like, hey, you know me, I've been in your Facebook group for ages. This is what we do. This is what we can do. These are some references from some people that we've already worked with. How do you feel about collaborating with us exclusively so that we could provide post-translation editing to your clients? And they said yes. And it was such a surprise that they would embrace us so openly and so willingly, because on August the 1st, 2024, our pop-ups and banners went live on the Scribe Shadow website. So now, when an author logs in to the Scribe Shadow website and translates their book, there's a pop-up that says, if you'd like a human to proofread your book, click here. And it takes you to my website, which is wordcount.inc, where you can upload your manuscript for a human review. And that happened August the 1st, 2024. And like immediately, within 12 hours, the first manuscripts started coming in. In August, I think we did 3.5 million words.
Wow.
Yeah. And then the next month, 4.5 million words. And then the next month, I think it was 7 million words. And it has continued to grow from there.
Remarkable. Yeah, so this makes so much sense to me, because I think we talked maybe 7 or 8 months ago, and I was like, maybe it was about 8 or 9 months ago now, maybe. And I was like just quitting my job at Mr. Beast. And
That's
when I was
right.
there, part of what I was doing was working with an internal agency that we built there to do dubbing and localization for Mr. Beast. And when I was there, I hired 42 people from around the world, all different languages, Catalan, Russian, you name it, to perform quality control, which is exactly what you're doing, on subtitles and audio dubbing. And it is a process that I don't think you fully respect how important quality control is until you've been in the room, because there's a difference between just rough translating a book and actual localization. And if you want to create something quality, localization is essential. And even with the best AI, it's not a localization partner. It can do pretty well at translating. And QC, if you do AI plus QC, it still brings down cost dramatically while maintaining almost, if not sometimes even better quality, is what we found. I can't speak to too much behind the experience we did with AI there, but all I have to say is that none of this is surprising, and all of this makes complete sense because I've seen it up like extremely close. And it's something that there's certain things that like are tough to do on your own, and certain things that make sense to do through an agency. And this is one of those things that tends to make sense, because with an editor, it's one of those things that if they are like, I don't even care if I curse on this podcast anymore. If they're shit, right? You kind of know it, right? This is a shit editor. They're giving me feedback that's bad. Now, mind you, you might be shit at taking feedback. This happens a lot. and the editors are very good editors will know what I'm talking about. But you are completely abstracted when it's a foreign language you don't understand. Like for someone to be performing
Right.
QC on the manuscript and saying XYZ, you have no way to check them at all. You need some sort of trust intermediary to almost verify that transaction. And sometimes that's an open marketplace. There's in the world of localization, this doesn't happen as much in the book translation world, but there's this marketplace, I think it's called Proz or something like that, where you can find like localization translators for mostly dubbing and subtitles. And it's useful. You can find people there who've had ratings, right? And it's a public marketplace. So that's one useful thing. Then the other useful thing is going with an agency that has some bar of quality that like you trust their vetting process, you trust their previous client reviews at scale, and they handle it for you. Because working with an individual that I guess doesn't have immense social proof becomes extremely challenging, because how are you going to vet this? You just aren't. You can't. You have no way. You're completely abstracted from it. What you're doing makes a lot of sense. And I actually didn't know, Max, that you had, and this makes so much sense to me, that you like had experience working in translation agencies in localization before this. So that makes even more sense to me that you're bringing both worlds in. I think before this moment, I think I'd always just figured, oh, he saw this as an interesting thing. You faced the problem and you did it. But this makes a lot more sense. So I'm curious, like, what makes someone, because mind you, like, however someone's going to be doing this, whether they choose to go through you guys or if they decide to do it themselves, maybe they know multiple languages, what is the process to actually perform QC on this AI translated work? Because I would imagine it's similar to doing a normal edit on a translated novel, because we're used to translating a book and then paying an editor. That's a very common thing. But what's maybe different from the process with AI? Is there anything different?
Okay, so first of all, let's talk about publishing translations that are raw. They haven't been edited. It is totally possible, and there are certain factors that contribute to how successful you will be with that. And one of those things is your writing style. It's a fact that different writing styles translate differently. If you've got a very clear and straightforward style, will translate better with the AI than some other styles. And there are authors who have published raw, unedited translations very successfully and made lots of money, and that is possible. Would I do it? No. And secondly, it is possible to edit your translation yourself. And there are lots of very interesting instructional videos on the Scribe Shadow website about how you can use ChatGPT to check the quality of your translation and make edits. But it's so difficult. I don't speak a word of German, so I tried making an AI translation with German and then trying to edit it myself using ChatGPT, and I can tell you it ended in tears. So again, it is possible to use AI to improve your AI translation, but it's extremely labor intensive. And would I do it again? No. So then to answer your question, which is what do we do to improve the translation? The first thing that
Okay.
you were really quiet.
I was letting you cook. I'm like, let's hear the process
Okay.
from Max. Yeah.
Okay, let me make sure I remember what the process is.
I know it's a lot. It's definitely a lot to dive into.
No, this is great because this is what I'm doing for my presentation at Author Nation. So
Hey,
I've been
You're
practicing this.
practicing live. Great.
Grammar, consistency, idiomatic phrases. Okay, got it. 3 things. The process that I invented is called translation review. And what we're looking for when we do a review of a translation is 3 things: spelling, grammar, and punctuation, which can be a lot more complicated than you imagine; consistency, and that's consistency of terms and of language; and also idiomatic phrases. When you're translating from a foreign language into English, the results are fantastic because English is a very simple language comparatively. And so the AI can take all of those really complicated things like different genders and different tenses and simplify them into English with fantastic results. But when English is the source language and we're translating into French or German or Spanish, AI has got to try and figure out how to turn those into really complicated sentences with genders and sentences with weird ways of saying the past tense. And that's why when you get a manuscript that's translated with AI, it's gonna have errors, spelling errors, grammar errors, punctuation errors. And the first thing that we do is read the book, not like a normal reader, and fix all of those grammatical errors. And sometimes, like for example, for French, that can mean literally thousands of edits per manuscript, because once you change one little thing, the whole sentence has got to be edited to match. So spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Spelling in German is my personal nightmare, because the German government very helpfully updates the spellings of thousands of common words every few years. And that gives Germans the opportunity to disagree with each other very often about how to correctly spell words. And that means that when you produce a translation in German, every single person that reads it will find a spelling mistake that's not actually there. So that's another thing that we do.
That is huge. It's almost like when you go to an editor, right? It's like you have the line edit, the copy edit. It's a different type of edit. It's a brand new type of edit in a sense, is what it sounds like. So
it's translation review.
Right, you go to hire all these different types of folks, and this is a new job in the publishing space, which you brought up in the beginning, and I'm curious your take on this because I've seen this as well. The AI is damaging localization professional jobs. Do you see this new wave of, clearly people still need to be involved in the process? Do you see this as something, especially for folks who have concerns about taking away from human jobs, need humans? So my curiosity here is this something that you see helping grow or stabilize the industry? Because it doesn't sound like all localization is going away and all translation jobs are going away. Is it just changing, or is a lot of it going away? It's an open question. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. To use a very local expression, I would say the proof is in the pudding. And Word Count has got 47 translators on its payroll. That's 47 translators that wouldn't otherwise necessarily have a job. It's very difficult right now for translators, freelance translators, to get work. So what can I say? We're employing people. They seem to like the work.
I think it's one of the objections that I see with AI all the time is like you're taking away from humans, and no one wants to take away from fellow humans. That's not the idea. You're describing this new kind of editing that is giving new work to humans. And I guess the idea is that's beautiful. You're employing 48 localization professionals. That's incredible. And that you're creating these new jobs, creating these new opportunities for people. And I guess the question is, do we live in a world where there's now so much more things being translated and the market grows enough that this new type of translation work actually balances out so that there's still a very similar number of professionals in the space? They're obviously just doing different type of work. It's an open question if you think that's possible, because I don't know enough about the industry to even, you've seen it way up close than I have. This has been a huge portion of your life, is deep in this. And I'm wondering if there's an optimistic take here that you are actually maybe creating what this future industry could look like, and for us to be able to support that. Because I know one of the big reasons that people don't like AI translations is because it's taking away from human jobs. And I think like if that's not true, or we think that's not true, then that's an interesting counterpoint to that. I'm not trying to sell people on doing AI. You don't need to do AI, but I think that I like to challenge both ways, like the pros and the cons of it, because one, it makes for an interesting conversation, but two, I think most of the conversation in the author community just isn't as nuanced as it should be. And the nuance here seems to be that like, it's obviously not AI taking away human jobs. It's AI and humans together. So does that balance the equation out, or does it still not balanced out and there's lots of lost jobs? That's the question, the macro question to think about, which many authors do think about, this sort of moral question behind them.
So it's always been really important that we use AI ethically. And what does that mean? We've had to figure that out for ourselves. We want to use AI. We enjoy using AI, and using AI is profitable for our company. But how do we do it ethically? That's a question that I ask myself every day. We've created 47 jobs that wouldn't otherwise exist. We've got 47 translators who work for us, performing translation review every day, and that's how they pay their rent and buy their groceries. And I think that's important. And I think any author that's worried about using AI and using our service can take that to heart. And that when they send us their manuscript, there's a real person on the other side who actually reads their book and gets paid for it. And that makes me feel good. And the other thing is that WordCount is, as a company, very dedicated to hiring in a diverse way. So we are we've got 47 reviewers, and of those reviewers, all of them are women and trans people, bar two. We've got two
Wow,
cis
that's great.
male reviewers who work for us, and everybody else is female identified or trans. And I actually think that's part of our success, because very quickly, like, one of the things that we do really well is that we work fast and we work effectively and efficiently. And I think that we did that very quickly. Right at the beginning, we were able to communicate well and collaborate, and you do this and I'll do that, and we'll get the manuscript back by Friday. And I would love authors to know more about who we are and how we work and the amazing things that we've done as a team, because it's actually what keeps me coming back to work every day.
Now, that's so cool. And it's like really a great community you have of folks. And I think it's important that localization, as it's something that it's subjective, right? It is actually, there's many moments of nuance and subjectivity in this. So to have someone that you can trust and that you think can properly really respect your story and be able to make it localized not just to like the mainstream, but to people who might not resonate with the mainstream and other cultures is really beautiful, because we want to create these inclusive stories. Could be genre, could be length, that your process with AI is better suited for or not suited for. If I bring you documentary something, I don't know, is that something that you can do well with, or like a memoir versus nonfiction versus spicy fiction versus all the other things? Like, is there things that we should look out for? And also, I'm sure you get this question all the time, people wanting to prepare their manuscript for you, right? Like they have the English version. Do I need to do anything before it goes to you, Max? And what's your answer to that? Do I need to change it if there's something about it that might cause you and your team issues?
So let's have a look at some of the genres that are most difficult for the AI to translate.
Okay.
Anything military or police.
Interesting.
Because then you've got lots of different titles, different ranks,
Oh,
all of the different things that come with rank. For example, in a book, you might say the admiral. Instead of saying the admiral, you might say the 3 stars, or the one with the stripes on his sleeve, or whatever. And that stuff is like super complicated for the AI to get right and to get localized and to decide for you. Do you want your Italian translation to have the English general and admiral and inspector, which is fairly common in Italian, or do you want it translated and you want the local terms? Those are all things that the AI can't really decide for you. And if you don't tell the AI what you want, you're going to get a very inconsistent manuscript. You might get 50-50, sometimes admiral and sometimes not.
do you guys then in that situation, like is there like a pre-manuscript check before you throw it into the AI that's, let's look if it has these things, and then ask the author, like, what do you want it to be in this? Is that part of it?
One of the things I love about the Scribe Shadow platform is watching it evolve, because now it has always translate, never translate. So if you research in advance, for example, you've got a novel about a detective, you can decide in advance that you want detective always translated as whatever you decide. And then you can plug that into the Scribe Shadow platform, and in theory, your manuscript will come out according to your instructions.
Police and military can be difficult.
Sci-fi's always got military and police and ranks and stuff like that.
Fantasy names, is that an issue, or you just leave those untranslated?
High fantasy is the most difficult, because
Okay.
it's beautiful and complex and complicated, but like the more place names that you've got, the more character names that you've got. Oh gosh, we did a series this month that had prophecies, poetic rhyming prophecies that had to be translated exactly because the whole book was predicated on the fulfillment of those prophecies. Yeah, it was so complicated.
That's now like we're getting
Yeah.
writing almost poetry in another language with trying to maintain meaning, which is very hard.
And it just so happens actually that we have someone on the team who is a professional translator, trilingual, German, Spanish, English, and also has a master's in poetry. So I wrote to them and said, listen, we've got this series and we're translating it into German and Spanish. How about you translate the poetic prophecies for us, and then you can be the team leader for the project and make sure that we get it right all the way through all 9 books in the series, that it's always consistent. And it's very complicated, and it's more of a collaboration than most people think.
So by collaboration, you mean I'm not just going to give you the story and then get it back whatever, how many weeks later. There's some back and forth throughout the process. I hit this roadblock or question as a translator. I'm going to you, the author, and saying, hey, how do you want to approach this?
Ideally, we will get all the information that we need at the beginning. And for a lot of manuscripts, there isn't a lot of extra information that we need. We read the book and it's self-explanatory. It's a sweet romance or a cozy mystery, and it hasn't got a lot of like invented terms or locations, and we don't need a back and forth. But when it comes to books with rhyming prophecies and 150 place names, there are some things that you can do to prepare your project for us. And one of those things is to give us a glossary. So all of the locations in your book, all of the character names, any invented terms like fantasy creatures, and if you can give us that list, we can then translate all of those words in advance and send them to you for your approval before we start the review.
That's brilliant. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. If someone's writing their book, you can also think about making that glossary as you're writing or coming up with things. It could be part of, when you think about a series Bible, like part of that series Bible is now my glossary for translation. What words do I need to flag as I'm writing that I go, yeah, like I want to make sure this maintains its meaning or stays the same.
Phrases are really important to you. Like usually, hopefully we would pick it up. We'd be reading the book and we'd be like, this is the main character's catchphrase. Let's make sure we translate that the same every time. You can help us out by giving us a list of all your favorite jokes and phrases and moments, and then we can pay special attention to those.
Makes so much sense. So compared to normal translation, what would be the cost? Like I'm going to go like the normal traditional translation route versus I'm now going to go this AI plus human QC translation route that you're doing. What is the cost and time of that versus traditional translation?
For a traditional translation with a human-only process, you can expect to pay for your average 80,000 word novel in excess of 8,000 euros, about $7,500. And you can expect to wait at least 6 months, and in reality, probably more like 12. Now, you can use the Scribe Shadow platform and upload your manuscript and pay probably less than $100 and have your manuscript translated by the AI in less than 5 minutes. So word count is not in the middle, but what we do is, okay, let me start again. So if you've already translated your book using Scribe Shadow and you only want translation review, then that service is priced at 0.009 euro cents per word. So 80,000 word manuscript times by 0.009 is 720 euros.
Great. That exchange.
Maybe you can add the dollars later because God help me.
Usually it's like a euro's around $1-ish dollars. Usually it's ish. So it's that gives people a very good idea of it.
It's
That's not
about 10% of what you would pay for a human-only
right.
translation for a
Right.
human AI hybrid.
That makes it so much more accessible.
And don't forget, it's going to be much quicker. So in Spanish, for example, if you sent us your translation today, I could have it back to you within 3 weeks. Italian, 4 to 5 weeks. German, 4 to 5 weeks. French, 6 to 7 weeks right now, but it is Christmas, so you've got to give me a bit of leeway. Brazilian, 4 to 5 weeks. Dutch, 4 to 5 weeks. So it's not only much cheaper, but it's much faster.
Yeah, it's almost 10% the price, 10 times faster. Yeah, I've been seeing the same thing we've been building out at Creative with an internal production agency that makes films for people. And it's probably more than 10 times cheaper than traditional film and because of the crazy expense, but it's like $100.
Yeah.
So you can produce a movie for $6,000 if it's an hour long. Send us your file, you get it back, similar thing. You don't even touch the software. And it's pretty high quality stuff. So yeah, I see how it's like that's the model right now. Like people can literally save that much. It's incredible. The save time.
And what's exciting about it is if you remember Airbnb, the way that Airbnb has democratized access to hotellerie. Like before, if you wanted to make money hosting tourists, you needed to make a huge investment and buy a hotel, and then you could use Airbnb and achieve the same effect. I think that AI is democratizing access to translations for authors. Before, most independent authors couldn't afford translation. But now, all of a sudden, the gates have opened. And that's very exciting, but it's also very destabilizing to the industry. And what interests me is how that's going to play out over the next year or two. And you can see already authors who were the first ones to adopt AI translations absolutely dominating the foreign language market right now. It's so exciting.
It's like being early, like in Kindle, right? It's back when,
right, like it's 2009 again. Like it's a little mini gold rush, but it's not so mini anymore.
No, exactly, because it's the whole world. It's the whole world. You saw the same thing on YouTube. Like the number one reason Mr. Beast has 440 million subscribers is 70% of subscriber growth is in non-English language speaking languages. Just some people watch both, and because it's like more popular, if that makes sense. If you have a bunch of people in Spain watching your content in Spanish because it's in Spanish, you'll also have more people in Spain watching it in English. So the actual growth of the Mr. Beast is like 80 to 90% because of dubbing, and they were the first to adopt it.
Right.
They're the biggest dubbers on YouTube. No one does it at their scale. All the other big YouTubers essentially use the Mr. Beast internal agency to do it, and it's been the largest contributor to growth. So it makes sense the same thing is already happening in books because it's analogous, and this has all happened over the last 2 years. It's literally been a thing.
It's so fresh.
It really
and
is.
Also, don't forget that cost per click in foreign language marketing is so low. If you're paying 1 cent CPC, that is going to give you such a big profit margin compared to 50 cents cost per click in North America.
That's what we found too. It's almost like easy to dominate the other markets. I've seen this time and time again. You run the same playbook, you become number one in a language very easily, which maybe that's like a follow-up video if people are like super interested in this, talk more about what I learned there with the marketing of different languages and how we launched them. But this is amazing. Max, we've shared so much in this podcast. I want to cover 2 more things. Like one is like anything maybe we haven't shared that you think people should know about this really new world and new way of translating stories. And then of course, like where we can find you if people actually want to use your service and get their books told throughout the world.
Okay, so I would love to use romance as the example because first of all, romance is like such an exciting genre. It's mostly women writing for mostly women, creating an economy themselves, writing dirty stories about what turns them on and sharing that with other women. Like, I think that is awesome. In English, there's a lot of competition. You go to Amazon and you look at the contemporary romance categories, and there are a lot of books. And there are a lot of really good books that don't get any traction in English because of the competition. But what we can do with translation is give those authors who are writing great books and getting no traction the opportunity to try their book in a market with way less competition. And suddenly you're seeing books that get very little attention in English, and suddenly they're bestsellers in German or French. And that is basically the premise of what we're trying to do, is get these exciting or entrepreneurial authors who are really interested in looking forward about how that they can diversify their income. That's what translation, AI, human hybrid translation can do for them. Right. So it's not exactly that, but one of the things that Word Count does now is we write and produce our own series specifically for foreign language publication. So we have multiple series right now in translation doing very well that we produced ourselves. And we use K-Lytics and also just our own analysis to figure out what's selling where, and then we can produce, translate, and have a book available for distribution in one of 15 countries within 6 weeks. Next week, we're going to be in Las Vegas. Okay. So if you're interested in finding out more about wordcount.inc, you can visit us at our website. It's wordcount.inc. And we have loads of information there about what we do and how we do it. You can submit your manuscript on the homepage for translation and or review. But you can also just email us. Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank y'all for listening. Maxwell, we're going to have him on another time. We can't not. We can't not. So this will be amazing. In the meantime, if y'all are enjoying the pod, I'd love if you shared it with an author friend. It's been so much fun. We're almost at now, I think, approaching 35 episodes, which is super, super cool. We're launching soon, so you can go to creativewood.tv. You can join the waitlist, and you can see what we're up to. It's going to blow your mind. And I can't wait to help you transform your story into film. With all that said, hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And as always, don't forget, together, we are boundless.